and welcome again. Expanding on the theme introduced of the approaching Ceausescu moments due to occur globally, we can assume that those oppressing us will laugh at such talk. They believe themselves invulnerable in the face of disarmed, disoriented and largely brainwashed populations. In this, they risk the fatal error of all self-obsessed tyrants, that of underestimating their intended victims. There are four main components contributing to this short-sightedness. 1. The fact that one is smart doesn't mean that the other guy is stupid. 2. As Boris Spassky remarked during his match for the World Chess Championship with the legendary Bobby Fischer, who usually refused the offer of a draw, preferring to play for the win, quote, "A person prepared to commit suicide has the initiative," end quote. 3. Overwhelming numbers, when combined with determination, can defeat superior technical ability. And 4. The question, who will guard the guards? We are confronted by a group of elites who have determined amongst themselves that they alone are intelligent enough to decide how society will be administered and even who should be permitted to live. Such arrogance alone deserves the mother of all comeuppances. They are simply not interested in the concept of objective or just law. Their philosophy is that if they can do something, then that is permissible, and it's up to their intended victims to prevent it, if they can. That is the meaning of the title of this talk, The De Facto World. Theories and fine-sounding constitutions are all very well, but the world operates on the principle, it is what it is. These people are clearly definable as narcissistic sociopaths and psychopaths, devoid of the usual measures of empathy and compassion, which pervade the consciences of almost all of humanity. Research dating mainly from the 1940s onwards shows that the percentage of the population either displaying signs of psychopathy or successfully concealing such signs ranges from as little as 1.2% using the strictest measures of assessment to as high as 6% or even higher. It's reasonable then to assess this figure as around 4 to 5%, which is the conclusion of the study referenced. According to various filters that can be applied, it's not a fixed number in all situations. For example, it's higher in males than females, and also in North American males than European males. The study linked in the comments box is a meta-study, meaning that it's derived from a sizable number of other studies, all conducted independently of each other. It's well worth a read. From the perspective of this discussion, it's important to note that a study conducted online by Dutton in 2012 involving 5,400 people found that, quote, in the UK, the 10 professions with the highest levels of psychopathic traits were company CEOs, lawyers, radio or television characters, salespersons, surgeons, journalists, priests, police officers, chefs, and civil servants. On the other hand, the 10 professions with the lowest levels of psychopathic traits were social health assistants, nurses, therapists, artisans, stylists, charity workers, teachers, creative artists, physicians, and accountants. In the same direction, Lilienfeld et al. 2014, obtaining valid responses from 3,388 people, found that people in a managerial position at work had higher levels of psychopathic traits than those who did not occupy such positions, and that those who worked in jobs with occupational risk, e.g. police officers, firefighters, military service people, miners, also had higher levels of psychopathic traits than those working in jobs without occupational risk. Employers also showed higher levels of psychopathic traits compared to psychologists and other mental health professionals, end quote. Considering the events of the past 3 years, it shouldn't be a surprise that there are no prizes for being able to identify from those lists most of the main offenders as well as the main groups guilty of craven submission to unlawful orders. This may indicate an even greater gulf between those with heightened levels of psychopathy amongst those in positions of authority, which are really supposed to be positions of service, and the rest of the population. Such data might go some way to explaining the extraordinary degree of compliance with unlawful edicts running counter to our inalienable rights, and also the ramping up of the severity and viciousness of those we used to believe were there to serve and protect us. It's not difficult to theorize that the initial lack of resistance readily encouraged those committing the offences to become even more belligerent. An objective observer would likely conclude that both groups, the oppressors and the oppressed, must seriously readjust both their thinking and their behaviours. The key variable in this scenario of those elected to serve instead of becoming overbearing and tyrannical is the police. The judiciary, who being generally of higher intelligence than the police, are among the prime movers of the continuous plot to undermine the efficacy of Magna Carta over the centuries, would in fact be unable to inflict their greed and lust for power on the population without the support of those we entrust to act as agents of enforcement. The police, therefore, because of the abhorrent nature of their actions in propping up this evil despotism, are the ones at risk of paying the greatest penalties for their crimes. Some question the point of signing oaths and placing criminal officers and supposed public servants on notice. But these steps are taken so that we have solid, admissible evidence to present in proper courts de jure when trial by jury is restored to our justice system. Failure to do this will simply result in waves of rage and frustration when it's realised that despite everyone knowing of their guilt, lawful retribution may not happen for lack of evidence to present. Without admissible evidence, many cases would simply devolve into one person's word against another, or hearsay. If we want a return to a true rule of law, the trials by jury must be conducted in stark contrast to the obvious miscarriages of justice that have been our lot for centuries. The alternative to having properly conducted trials could simply be the eruption of mob violence against those perceived to be the main offenders, which has often been observed in nations with less well-developed systems of justice. Such is not a goal to be desired. Let's look more closely at the position of the police. Both they and their victims need a clearer understanding of what is and what is likely to be. In a court of law, guilt is not determined solely by whether harm was caused, but whether that harm was the result of premeditated, malicious intent. Even the police and judiciary in many cases fail to understand this. In a recent piece of journalistic nonsense on Channel 9 TV about sovereign citizens, self-confessed abuser of human rights, ex-magistrate David Halpern, sloppily defined traffic and other minor infractions of arbitrary legislation as crimes. The fact that there are no victims in almost all of these miscarriages of justice apparently escapes the mind of this Dean of Law at one of Victoria's universities. However, there is no doubt about the guilt of police when they routinely commit the crime of harassing and persecuting innocent Crown subjects. As we know, these alleged constables swear an oath to faithfully serve the monarch and uphold the monarch's peace in the community, administering the law without fear or favour, malice or ill will. Yet when they are asked to verify if they are standing under this oath when they begin to enforce an arbitrary, unlawful piece of legislation upon a victim, when there is no evidence of any crime having occurred, they will invariably refuse to answer the question, or worse, become violent and cause harm themselves. Such refusals and persistence with their unlawful actions constitute irrefutable evidence of premeditated malice aforethought. These are extremely serious offences, classifiable as war crimes, which carry most severe punishments, not the least of which will be their ultimate degradation and despisal by the community at large when the true nature of their activities becomes known to the population in general. Smashing car windows and assaulting people who are merely sitting in their vehicles, how long will it be before people see this for what it is, state-sponsored carjackings? Prosecutions can't come soon enough for decent people. Be warned, sworn officers of the law, that when the majority of people learn that you are actually criminals, aiding and abetting other criminals in committing treason, that they will cease to obey you and will instead seek your personal prosecution for the crimes you commit every day of your sordid existences. Stick to apprehending real criminals, those who do create victims, and which, since you apparently seek to hide the fact from your consciences, include your own employers. Ask yourselves, who bears the greater responsibility for the execution of unlawful orders? Is it the one giving the order or the one carrying it out? It is yourselves, the ones who lie to yourselves that your gun, badge and costume give you the license to behave in ways which without those things would be forbidden to you. You have a conscience. Are you one of those who tries to suppress it with alcohol or other drugs because to confront the horrible, ugly truth about your betrayal of the trust placed in you causes you to recoil in disgust from contemplating what sort of human being you have become? Do you attempt to justify your crimes by claiming that it's to serve your family? So did the lickspittles and forelock tuggers of every despotic regime, even from before ancient Egypt down through the Soviet and Nazi eras, past Pol Pot and to the modern-day horrors of the Chinese social credit system. Is this the world you want to create for your children to inhabit? One where they can only enjoy a precarious degree of comfort sustained by inflicting your type of abuse on their friends and neighbours? Or would you prefer to build a world based upon justice, equality for all under the rule of law, not the whims of tyrants? We know you have courage, otherwise you wouldn't be prepared to place your lives at risk confronting the dangerous criminals and thugs who you do work to catch and bring to justice. This is a call from those of us who have entrusted you with your roles to show that courage in refusing to comply any more with the lawlessness of those falsely claiming to be the government. They have no crown authority, as technically neither do you, but you have sworn an oath to the office of the monarch, even though that office is currently vacant. And if you stick to simply upholding the common law, that to which everyone agrees, and cease trying to enforce unlawful, null and void acts and statutes, the people will support you in returning our Commonwealth to the rule of law. Yours is a sacred trust. For your own, your children's and everyone else's sake, man up. Now to the compliers. It should be clear by now that meekly submitting to orders given by people who it can be easily proven have no real authority over you is not going to improve your condition in life. These oppressors are criminals. Criminals do not operate their enterprises for your benefit. They wish to enslave you, and after you, your children and their children. Ask yourselves, is such a life worth living? The police and those giving them their orders are never going to respect your rights until you learn what they are and show that you're willing to fight for them. That doesn't necessarily mean fighting physically, though that will eventually be the only way to regain freedom if you do let it slide for too long. What it does mean is you have a choice between standing up for principles to which these videos and other sources, the result of the work of hundreds, even thousands of others, point the way, or just bending over and doing exactly as you're told by people who are no more than your equals? What is to be your decision? Thank you for watching.